Claressa Shields just detonated her entire music career on a live microphone. And by the time this breakdown wraps, you are going to understand why the internet is treating her latest podcast appearance like a crime scene with fingerprints on every wall. Welcome back to the chaos, and buckle in early, because what Claressa Shields walked into last night was not an interview. It was a public execution she volunteered for, hosted, catered, and hit record on herself. And now the footage is metastasizing across every timeline faster than anybody in her camp can even fake a smile about it. Before we peel the first layer off this, do the routine. Slap that like button so this breakdown reaches every hip-hop corner of the internet. Subscribe if you have not already, because the next 72 hours are about to be an absolute avalanche on this story. And if you are new around here, this is where we take the culture seriously and the clown routines even more seriously. Now lock in for a second, because what I am about to walk you through has 3 separate scandals braided into a single 30-second stretch of tape. And Claressa Shields is the common denominator on all 3 counts. Here is the situation as it actually unfolded. Claressa Shields sat down for what was pitched as a promotional visit ahead of her next fight. A soft landing, a friendly host, softball questions, the kind of interview where a professional athlete usually gets to look composed, layered, and locked in on training. Instead, 12 minutes into the sit-down, the host asked Claressa Shields to freestyle on command. And from the instant that word left the host's mouth, the entire studio air pressure changed, because Claressa Shields did not freestyle. Claressa Shields stalled. Claressa Shields deflected. Claressa Shields joked. Claressa Shields tried to buy time. And then, when the buying time strategy ran out of runway, Claressa Shields delivered what the internet is now describing, without any hyperbole, as the most cringeworthy audition tape ever committed to a podcast microphone in 2026. I am not exaggerating for engagement. I want you to see it with your own eyes, hear it with your own ears, and draw your own verdict, because the tape does not need my color commentary to make its point. But before we roll the footage, we have to set the temperature of the room the internet is arguing inside, because context is currency in a story like this one. The neighborhood talk snatched the clip first, which is basically the algorithmic equivalent of dropping a match into a fireworks warehouse. Within 2 hours, the clip had cannonballed into the hip-hop trending column. Within 6 hours, the receipt threads were live. And by the time the sun was up on the East Coast, boxing analysts, hip-hop historians, veteran MCs, and even a couple of people who never post about this genre were quietly liking screenshots that torched Claressa Shields harder than any diss record ever managed. And that word, quietly, is doing a lot of work here, because part of what makes this story different is who is not defending her. The usual reflex apologists went silent. That silence is louder than anything they could have posted. That silence is chapter 1. So here is the thing: if you have been watching this saga marinate all year, if you thought the Chris Cyborg jokes had cooled off, if you thought the Papoose subplot had gone dormant, if you thought the Remy Ma temperature had dropped a couple of degrees below boiling, you were wrong across the board, because Claressa Shields just picked the fire back up with her bare hands, and she is squeezing it like she does not feel the heat. Now hold up, before we roll the tape, let us pin down the setup precisely. The host teed the freestyle request up gently. It was a request, not an ambush. Claressa Shields could have laughed it off. Claressa Shields could have said, "Save that for the fight week press conference." Claressa Shields could have flipped it back into a bar about training camp or a shout out to her opponent. Any of those exits would have been graceful. Instead, Claressa Shields accepted the challenge with the confidence of a champion, then delivered with the poise of somebody who forgot the words to their own national anthem inside their own house. The hesitation was the first tell. Real freestylers do not pause. Real freestylers do not stall. Real freestylers do not need to warm up a beat with jokes about who they are not before they begin telling you who they are. Real freestylers open their mouths and the bars fall out, because that is the definition of the discipline. Claressa Shields, instead, sat inside a silence that felt like an eternity, made a couple of half jokes about not being Papoose, and then finally cobbled together a stretch of lines that, depending on the listener, either sounded rehearsed to the point of being a nursery rhyme or sounded like nothing at all. I want to be crystal clear about one thing before I say another word about the performance itself. Nobody in that room expected Claressa Shields to be a Grammy-level lyricist. Nobody was demanding a 16-bar clinic. Nobody was expecting her to sound like Rhapsody or Lato or Glorilla on their best day. What people were expecting, and what any performer at that microphone should be able to deliver, was the basic threshold. A little confidence, A few clean lines. A trace of that off-the-dome magic that separates rappers from people who write raps in their notes app and hope no one asks. Claressa Shields did not clear that bar. Claressa Shields did not even see that bar. Claressa Shields swung at that bar and tripped over her own footwork. Roll the tape because the internet has already seen it and I need you to see exactly what they saw. Watch how the host teases the request. Watch how Claressa Shields glances sideways. Watch the Papoose deflection land like a lead balloon inside a wind tunnel. Watch the seconds tick against her. And most importantly, watch how, when the words finally start falling out, they land nowhere near the swagger Claressa Shields carries into every other room she walks into. This is not a snippet cherry-picked to embarrass her. This is the full moment. This is the full temperature. And the temperature is icy. In my honest opinion, and I say this as somebody who has watched Claressa Shields grow from an Olympic prodigy to a legitimate 4-division undisputed champion, that 30-second stretch is the most uncomfortable footage I have ever seen her put on camera. And that is a stacked shelf to compete with. This was not a freestyle. This was a stall session with a beat playing underneath it. And the gap between the confidence Claressa Shields projects in every other lane, and how completely stranded she looked in this one, is genuinely striking. Boxing is a discipline Claressa Shields has earned. Rapping is a discipline Claressa Shields keeps auditioning for. And the audition tape is failing the vibe check every single time. If somebody hands you the microphone and asks you to freestyle, that is not a threat, that is not a trap, that is not an ambush. That is an open floor. That is your window to prove that you belong in the conversation that you keep inserting yourself into. You do not stall. You do not pause. You do not pull out a canned lyric about being broke and telling critics to get their money up. Because every rapper who ever caught a slice of criticism has said the same line on the same beat. The internet has heard that verse 1,000 times from 100 different mouths, and Claressa Shields just delivered version 1001 with the exact same energy as everybody else. Now here is the part that everybody has been quietly acknowledging but nobody has said loud enough. Every time Claressa Shields does something like this, the boxing world winces. Because whether or not it is fair, whether or not it is her intention, the freestyle sideshow keeps pulling the spotlight away from the actual accolades Claressa Shields has legitimately earned inside the squared circle. 4-division undisputed. Olympic double gold. Historic pay-per-view numbers. That is a resume most fighters would trade organs for. And yet, week after week, month after month, the conversation about Claressa Shields keeps drifting away from the sport she rules and toward things that quietly undermine the sport she supposedly loves. Let us pivot to the Papoose deflection because that line, "I am not Papoose," has already become its own micro-controversy inside the larger controversy. First of all, nobody in that studio was accusing Claressa Shields of being Papoose. The Papoose comparison did not fall out of the sky. It did not come from the host. It did not come from a caller. It did not come from a heckler in the comments. The Papoose comparison came from Claressa Shields herself, which means Claressa Shields introduced Papoose into the room as a defensive shield, and in doing so, she quietly conceded an extremely inconvenient point. Papoose lives rent-free inside Claressa Shields' head at the exact moment she is about to freestyle. That is a psychological receipt, and the internet cashed it immediately. Now here is the twist a lot of folks caught in real time. Papoose, for all the jokes at his expense across the years, is genuinely a bar-heavy technical rapper. The man can spit. Papoose might not be a mainstream chart force, and Papoose might catch heat online for 100 different reasons, but as a technical MC, Papoose can absolutely rap. So when Claressa Shields tries to distance herself from Papoose while simultaneously delivering a freestyle that could not have cleared a Papoose album cut on its worst day, the optics get very, very uncomfortable. It is the kind of self-inflicted wound the internet feasts on for weeks. And then there is the deeper subtext, which is where a lot of the online commentary has been camping out. A lot of viewers believe Claressa Shields has been deliberately constructing a music persona for herself, drawing a very specific set of comparisons, not to Papoose, but to somebody who lives extremely close to Papoose. The aesthetics, the braid choices, the photo shoot postures, the interview cadence, the bar structures, the video wardrobes. For months, side-by-side comparisons have been carpet-bombing social media, and the pattern is a lot louder than the coincidence defense can survive. Claressa Shields keeps reminding us she is not Papoose, while the internet keeps reminding her she might be echoing somebody else in that same household. And the more Claressa Shields swats at that theory, the louder it gets amplified. Now imagine, for 1 second, if Claressa Shields tried to pull the same performance on an actual hip-hop platform. Imagine Claressa Shields walking into Sway in the morning with that energy. Sway hands you the headphones, the beat drops, and you sit there gathering your thoughts in silence for 28 seconds before offering a recycled verse about your critics being broke. That would not just be uncomfortable. That would end careers on the spot. Sway does not hold hands. Sway does not hand out participation trophies. Sway hands you a microphone and expects you to justify the oxygen you are breathing in that studio. Or picture the same moment on Rap Radar. Or on SiriusXM Hip Hop Nation. Or on Drink Champs, where NORE would have replayed that clip in slow motion 3 times just for his own amusement. The reception in those rooms would have been merciless. And every one of those rooms is a room Claressa Shields would need access to if she genuinely intends to build the music career she keeps signaling. That is the disconnect. Claressa Shields is chasing rap credibility inside podcasts that will nod politely, while carefully avoiding the platforms that would actually pressure test whether the credibility is real. Claressa Shields is auditioning in the laundering rooms while telling the world she is ready for the Coliseum. Roll it again, because it only gets wilder from here. What comes next is arguably the segment that generated even more heat than the freestyle itself, and once you hear it, you are going to understand why the fallout has been so severe. The host, apparently intoxicated by the moment, hyped Claressa Shields up as if she had just delivered a Hall of Fame performance. Move out the way, Lil Kim. Move out the way, Foxy Brown. There is a new star in town. Read that sentence back slowly, because those are 2 of the most sacred names in the female rap canon, and dropping them next to what we just witnessed is the kind of cultural offense the internet does not take lightly. Lil Kim is a foundational architect of the entire female MC lane. Foxy Brown redefined the archetype and did it with a technical vocabulary that shaped every rapper who came after her. These are women who battled through unimaginable industry circumstances to carve out territory for every female MC in the game today. And their catalogs, their bars, their delivery, their impact, are not up for casual barbershop debate. To even jokingly place a freestyle like the one Claressa Shields just delivered inside their orbit is a violation of unwritten cultural rules that go back 30 years, and the comment sections responded accordingly. Within hours, Lil Kim fans, Foxy Brown fans, hip-hop historians, and even people who do not care about boxing or rap in any capacity were lining up to remind Claressa Shields that some comparisons must be earned, not announced. And this is where the story pivots into what many people are calling the most damaging moment of the entire interview. Because it is one thing to accept an over-the-top compliment. It is another thing entirely to sit there and nod along while somebody rearranges the Mount Rushmore of female rap around your 5-line stumble. Claressa Shields did not push back. Claressa Shields did not laugh it off. Claressa Shields did not say, "Let me earn that first." Claressa Shields let the comparison hang in the air. Claressa Shields let the sentence breathe. And Claressa Shields moved forward like the crown had just been legitimately placed on her head. And now we arrive at the moment that broke the internet cleanly in half. The host lists off the modern female rap heavyweights. Cardi B, Megan Thee Stallion, Glorilla, and somewhere inside that stretch of the exchange, the name Remy Ma enters the room. And Claressa Shields, without a beat of hesitation, says she does not really know many of Remy Ma's songs. Rewind that. Claressa Shields, on tape, in 2026, in the middle of a public feud arc that the entire internet has been documenting for 18 months, said she does not know Remy Ma's music. Let that marinate, because the internet certainly did. Within minutes, the receipts started avalanching. Old posts, old photos, old comments, old ring walks, old interview clips, old outfit selections, old caption plays, old hairstyle callbacks. The paper trail is not subtle. The paper trail is not a whisper. The paper trail is a bullhorn inside an empty stadium. And every artifact in that paper trail contradicts, on some level or another, the idea that Claressa Shields somehow has zero familiarity with Remy Ma's catalog. That claim was dead on arrival before Claressa Shields even finished the sentence. Here is the genuinely wild part. Claressa Shields mentioned Cardi B. Claressa Shields mentioned Megan Thee Stallion. Claressa Shields mentioned Glorilla. Claressa Shields mentioned Lil Kim. Claressa Shields mentioned Foxy Brown. Claressa Shields mentioned Eve. Claressa Shields did not mention Nicki Minaj. And Claressa Shields claimed no familiarity with Remy Ma. That list, more precisely the omissions in that list, does not read like a spontaneous conversation. It reads like a carefully curated playlist designed to broadcast a very specific message. Cardi B has famously extended love to Remy Ma. Nicki Minaj has famously carried public tension with Remy Ma. The absence of Nicki Minaj and the ghosting of Remy Ma from the list Claressa Shields chose to name is either the most coincidental slip in podcast history or a signal fired at industrial volume. The internet is not buying the coincidence. Now for the paper trail, because if a single Instagram screenshot does not move the needle, maybe 200 of them stitched together into a supercut will. Fans and creators have been building this case for months, and the podcast just handed them the mother of all evidentiary moments. Let us walk through the exhibits in order. Exhibit 1, the fashion overlap. Fans have compiled side-by-side galleries showing Claressa Shields wearing near-identical looks that Remy Ma wore in previous appearances. Fitted leather sets, signature braid patterns, specific poses in front of specific backdrops. Coincidence is defensible in one instance, maybe two, maybe three. Coincidence becomes indefensible at 10. Exhibit 2, the entrance choreography. Fans have documented multiple boxing entrances in which the music selection, the staging, and the camera choreography carry a strong resemblance to Remy Ma's visual grammar. Every new clip that surfaces makes the "I am not aware of Remy Ma" defense harder to sustain in the court of viral public opinion. Exhibit 3, the social timing. Supporters of Remy Ma have pointed out that certain Claressa Shields posts have gone live almost immediately after Remy Ma posted or released music. When timing lines up that consistently across that many months, the "we are not paying attention to each other" fence starts to buckle. Exhibit 4, the resurfaced interview clips. There are older sit-downs floating around in which Claressa Shields references specific details that would require at least a working familiarity with Remy Ma's career. Once fans resurface those clips, the internet does what the internet always does. It stitches them together, layers a soundtrack, and blasts them across every algorithm until the contradiction becomes impossible to ignore. Exhibit 5, the hairstyle iterations. Braid patterns, color choices, length choices, side-by-side galleries have been circulating that make the aesthetic overlap almost too clean to accept as chance. Defenders of Claressa Shields have argued that black women share hairstyles all the time, and that argument has legitimate merit in isolation. But the pattern here is not one shared style. It is a rolling sequence of styles that appear on Remy Ma first and then appear on Claressa Shields not long after. Exhibit 6, the cadence drift. Certain hooks and phrases inside Claressa Shields' music have been flagged by fans as too structurally similar to specific Remy Ma bars to feel organic. Bars can rhyme by coincidence. Cadence patterns are considerably harder to accidentally clone. Add all 6 exhibits together and the "I do not really know Remy Ma's music" defense does not just wobble. It collapses like a folding chair at a family reunion. Which is precisely why the second Claressa Shields said it, the archive did not blink. The archive activated. Every past clip, every past post, every past photograph is now resurfacing at high velocity, and the collective online verdict has been ruthless. Here is the layer that a lot of the pop culture commentary is missing, and it is the layer boxing insiders have been whispering about for weeks. This freestyle did not happen inside a vacuum. This freestyle happened during promotional week for a Claressa Shields bout that has been struggling at the box office. That context reframes everything, because every controversy in the build-up to a fight has to be analyzed on 2 levels. There is what the controversy says, and there is what the controversy is engineered to do. The uglier truth is that the more chaotic Claressa Shields' promotional cycles get, the more observers are wondering whether the chaos is a strategy rather than a series of accidents. Because every viral clip drives search traffic. Every viral clip stirs the conversation. Every viral clip nudges a couple thousand curious eyeballs toward the pay-per-view checkout page. And when the fight itself is not generating enough heat on its own athletic merits, The surrounding drama becomes the marketing plan by default. Claressa Shields, according to multiple reports, has burned bridges with several of the biggest names in the division. Katie Taylor remains locked in permanent will-they-won't-they purgatory. Amanda Serrano has moved on to bigger arenas. Alicia Baumgardner is running her own separate saga. Savannah Marshall is boxing on entirely different cards. With those marquee matchups either off the board or repeatedly stalled, Claressa Shields is now preparing to face an opponent whose professional resume is significantly thinner than the promotion demands. The undercard adjustments have helped somewhat, but the fundamental issue remains, and it is a math problem. The fight itself is not generating the heat you would expect from a Claressa Shields headliner. When the fight does not generate the heat, the personality has to, which is why every podcast, every headline, every viral clip has started to feel less spontaneous and more calculated. Which brings us to the largest question hovering over this entire situation. Is the music thing a genuine artistic passion, or is the music thing a promotional arm dressed up as a passion? Because both answers are legitimate individually, but only one of them is being publicly claimed, and the gap between the claim and the pattern is where the audience's trust is quietly evaporating. Look at the timeline. Claressa Shields released a track. The track dropped inside a promotional cycle. The reactions were mixed. Claressa Shields responded to the reactions with more content. That content triggered more reactions. Every reaction fed another round of promotion. Somewhere along the way, the boxing story became a music story, which became a hip-hop feud story, which became a lifestyle story, which became an endless content mill with Claressa Shields at the center of the wheel. Some corners of the internet are already predicting Claressa Shields will lean into the music angle even harder as Fight Week approaches. There is chatter that the ring walk might feature a live music component. There is chatter that the pre-fight press conference might turn into a mini performance. There is chatter that the afterparty is being designed around a music release. Whether or not any of that materializes, the fact that people are seriously debating it tells you everything you need to know about how the promotion has been received. And here is the piece even Claressa Shields' most patient supporters have started to quietly admit. That version of Claressa Shields would probably be one of the most beloved athletes in women's sports right now. The version the audience is receiving instead is the version that keeps generating viral clips for reasons that have nothing to do with jab-cross combinations. And the audience fatigue is becoming impossible to ignore. Zoom out for a beat, because the media landscape here matters more than most casual viewers realize. There is a very specific pipeline that stories about Claressa Shields tend to travel. A clip lands on the neighborhood talk or the shade room. The clip gets stitched into commentary videos within hours. The commentary videos get quoted inside longer YouTube breakdowns. The YouTube breakdowns get referenced inside tweets. The tweets get screenshotted into Instagram carousels. The Instagram carousels get reposted onto TikTok. And by the time 48 hours have passed, the original moment has been recontextualized so many times that it barely resembles the source anymore. That is precisely the pipeline this freestyle has already entered. Unlike previous cycles, this one has structural legs because it is not one controversy. It is three interlocking controversies detonating on the same tape. The freestyle itself. The legend comparisons. The Remy Ma denial. Any single one of these would have generated a news cycle on its own merit. Braided together, they generate a whole genre of content. And Claressa Shields is now the star of a genre she did not audition to headline. Public sentiment has started to shift in ways even her most loyal defenders can no longer fully counter. The historic supporters, the ones who have ridden with Claressa Shields since her Olympic run, are getting quieter by the day. The neutral observers are drifting toward critical. That drift is quiet, but it is measurable, and once a public figure loses the neutral middle, the road back is very, very long. There is also a much bigger, much more uncomfortable conversation happening beneath all of this, and it deserves its own moment on the record. Women's boxing is sitting at an inflection point. There are more fighters, more cards, more paydays, and more mainstream attention than there have ever been in the history of the sport. Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano just wrapped a trilogy that reshaped how women's boxing gets marketed globally. Alicia Baumgardner remains one of the most polarizing champions in any weight class. Savannah Marshall has evolved into a legitimate crossover figure. And Claressa Shields, historically the loudest voice in every women's boxing room, is at genuine risk of being drowned out by her own noise. Every time Claressa Shields creates a viral moment that has nothing to do with her boxing, the sport pays a small tax. Because the mainstream conversation keeps getting yanked away from Katie Taylor's technical brilliance, away from Amanda Serrano's warrior instinct, away from Alicia Baumgardner's showmanship, and toward yet another Claressa Shields freestyle discourse. Fans of the sport have started saying it out loud. Fighters, privately, have started saying it too. Promoters, who need every women's boxing card to succeed in order to keep the momentum alive, are quietly frustrated. That is the tragedy hiding underneath the comedy. The freestyle is funny. The comparisons are absurd. The receipts are entertaining. But the collateral damage is a sport that has spent decades trying to be taken seriously, and every viral distraction adds another finger of weight to the wrong side of the scale. Back to the freestyle and the reaction it has generated, because the online verdict is worth breaking down piece by piece. Hip-hop Twitter roasted the clip within minutes. Boxing Twitter pretended not to have seen it and then quote-tweeted it anyway. Black women writers dissected it with surgical precision. White columnists who normally sit out of hip-hop discourse jumped in because the story crossed into general pop culture. Podcasters replayed it. Radio hosts referenced it. Even a couple of established rappers subtweeted it without ever naming Claressa Shields, and everybody knew exactly who was being subtweeted. The dominant verdict, near unanimous across every camp, is not that it was a bad freestyle. It is that it was a bad freestyle delivered with the confidence of a great freestyle. And that confidence gap is what has stuck with people. Because a bad freestyle delivered humbly gets forgiven quickly. A bad freestyle delivered with swagger gets memorialized. And this one is heading straight into the memorial hall. Screenshots are already being flipped into memes. Sound bites are being flipped into TikTok templates. The Papoose deflection is already being flipped into a running punchline on multiple podcasts. Claressa Shields has now unintentionally added several viral phrases to the internet's shared vocabulary, and not a single one of them is a phrase she would have chosen. Remy Ma has always been one of the smartest strategic voices in this genre, and Remy Ma's decision to let this moment breathe without direct engagement has forced the internet to argue the case on her behalf. Every fan clip, every side-by-side, every exhibit thread, every screenshot supercut is essentially unpaid promotion for the Remy Ma brand. And Remy Ma has not lifted a single finger. If Remy Ma decides at some point to formally respond, that will become its own news cycle. But right now, the silence is doing more work than a response ever could. The silence signals confidence. The silence signals restraint. The silence signals the veteran move of letting the newer player exhaust themselves before stepping into the ring. The contrast between Remy Ma's composure and Claressa Shields' chaos is not lost on anybody paying attention. Papoose, for his part, has also kept it relatively quiet, occasionally posting cryptic messages that fans have interpreted as commentary on the situation but never engaging directly. Which, again, is the smarter move. In a moment when the internet is already handling the argument for you, adding oxygen to the fire only makes the story. That is the safer road, but it relies entirely on the internet being willing to forget, and this particular internet has never been famously forgiving. Possibility 3. Claressa Shields addresses it head-on. Claressa Shields sits down with a major platform, explains her side, concedes what she needs to concede, doubles down on what she still believes, and uses the moment as a genuine reset. That is the mature road, and it is the one many of her longtime supporters are quietly hoping she takes. Possibility 4. Somebody else in the hip-hop world escalates. Maybe a rapper drops a track. Maybe a podcaster runs a full breakdown longer than this one. Maybe a documentary crew shows up. The moment that happens, Claressa Shields no longer controls the narrative, and Claressa Shields might not control it much longer either way. Whichever direction this goes, one fact is locked in. The historic pay-per-view numbers are still real. Nothing that happened on that podcast erases any of the accomplishments Claressa Shields has legitimately earned inside the ropes. But everything that happened on that podcast complicates the legacy conversation in ways that are going to matter for a long time. Because legacies are not just about the wins. Legacies are about the pattern. And the pattern right now is not flattering. For everybody else watching from the sidelines, the story has expanded past Claressa Shields as an individual. The story is now about how public figures navigate multiple lanes at once. The story is about whether music careers can be manufactured on top of athletic careers without eroding both. The story is about how the internet distributes credit and consequence in real time. The story is about how one 30-second stretch of podcast tape can either confirm or dismantle years of carefully constructed image work. Here is the final question worth leaving you with, because it is the question that has been echoing across every group chat, every comment section, and every hip-hop podcast for the past week. If Claressa Shields walked into Sway in the morning tomorrow, sat down in that chair, put on those headphones, and got asked to spit an actual freestyle, could Claressa Shields deliver? Or would we witness another rendition of what we just watched? Because the answer to that question is going to decide whether the music chapter of Claressa Shields' career survives, or whether this podcast clip becomes the headstone. And here is the deeper meta question, the one that never really goes away. When the internet builds a narrative this fast, this loud, and this coordinated, is it fair? Is it accurate? Is it too much? Or is it simply the natural consequence? Claressa Shields is the author of most of these chapters. And if there is a next chapter, and there is always a next chapter, Claressa Shields is going to be the one writing it, whether or not any of us like where it lands. The archive does not blink. The timeline does not sleep. And the saga surrounding Claressa Shields, Papoose, Remy Ma, and everything tangled around them is not ending anytime in the near future. In fact, if the rumors trickling out of Fight Week are even partially accurate, we might be sitting 72 hours away from the next detonation. So keep those notifications on, keep the comments section warmed up, and drop your verdict below. Do you believe Claressa Shields when she says she does not know Remy Ma's music? Do you believe the freestyle was spontaneous? Do you believe the whole thing was staged for promotion? Tell me in the comments, because I am reading them. And the next breakdown is already loading because the archive just refreshed, and something new just hit the timeline that you are absolutely going to want to see.